Hey, Inebri-arts, before we get into today's podcast, I just want to give a shout out to today's sponsors. Sponsors make this podcast happen, and without them, we wouldn't be here. So we just want to say thank you to them. And this episode is presented by Wild CBD. Wild produces the best tasting edibles on the market using real fruit and all natural flavoring, with flavors inspired by the Pacific Northwest, high quality ingredients, real fruit, and consistent dosing. Wild has become one of the leading cannabis edible producers in the country. Wild's new CBD line currently offers real fruit-infused gummies in blackberry, huckleberry, lemon, and raspberry, and CBD-infused sparkling water in raspberry, lemon, blackberry, and blood orange. Blood orange, I love that flavor. So each gummy is dosed with 25 milligrams of CBD and can be purchased in a bottle of 10 or 20. Wild CBD is offering our listeners 30% off their next purchase from wildcbd.com. That's WYLDCBD.com by using the code POD. That's code POD for 30% off your next purchase. Wild CBD products are intended only for the use of individuals age 18 and older. Wild CBD products should only be consumed as directed on the label and should not be used if you are pregnant or breastfeeding. All Wild CBD products are made with ingredients containing 0% THC. Consult with a health professional prior to using Wild CBD in combination with any medications or other dietary supplements. And our second sponsor for today is our good friends at Pretentious Pickles right here in Plymouth, Massachusetts. Pretentious Pickles. Damn it, man. They pickle everything. No matter what kind of vegetable you like, they pickle it. And beyond vegetables, they even do things like cranberries. It's all delicious. It's all hand cut and prepared right here in Plymouth, Massachusetts. They make just the best stuff. They have a store here locally, or you can go to pretentiouspickles.com and place your order online. And they're located at 190 Water Street in Plymouth, Mass. And make sure you check them out. I gotta say, man, I'm a big pickle fan, and their product is just fantastic. So thank you again to both Wild CBD and Pretentious Pickles. And now we're going to jump right into the podcast. Welcome back, Inebri-arts. This is Andy, the Inebri-art podcast. And for the past, I think it's been 3 years, we have been asked to take part in the Jewelry City Steampunk Festival. And it's something I look forward to every year. It's so much fun. I believe the whole thing's free. I don't believe they charge for any part of it. And we're asked again this year, but since, the situation is the way that it is, it's going to be a virtual event this year. So we are doing a podcast / video cast. I'm not exactly sure how it's going to be going up because this is in advance. And I am joined today by Bruce Rosenbaum. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And so you were described to me as a steampunk artist. Is that the best way to describe? Is that how you describe yourself, or?
Well, I think, just like with anything, I wear many different hats. So artist, designer, guru. I've been called Steampunk Dynamo, Steampunk King.
I feel like Steampunk Dynamo should be on your business card because that's pretty awesome.
Yes, I actually like that one. And actually, I've done some Steampunk Dynamo artwork too. So.
Oh, nice.
But and one of my favorites is Steampunk High Priest. And,
that sounds like a lot of responsibility.
Right. I did tell my mother when she was alive, all these kind of great accolades I was getting. And then I said, well, they even call me Steampunk High Priest. And I'm Jewish. And she says, why hasn't anyone called you Steampunk Rabbi? So I'm waiting for that one.
All right. So I feel like more and more people are familiar with what steampunk is. I believe the first steampunk festival we did, we were asking, kind of for our listeners to describe what steampunk, and I feel like if you don't know, man, Google it. It's pretty well known. But I'm going to ask you, what is the appeal? Like, why do you think so many people get into steampunk?
Right. Well, it is actually kind of dangerous to Google steampunk and then see what comes up.
It's dangerous to Google anything.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
But, you get a lot of women and, bustiers with cleavage and,
Put your safe search on before you Google.
So for me, I kind of, I have my own brand of steampunk. And that's the great thing about steampunk. It's very open to interpretation. Mm-hmm. So that's one of its advantages and disadvantages too, because it's hard to kind of define.
Yeah.
But for me, I kind of like to put it in kind of almost like a math formula with ingredients. So for me, steampunk really is this fusion of history plus art plus technology. I think you need to have those three things that kind of come together to kind of make steampunk. And its allure is that, I think in today's society where there's such an emphasis on technology and kind of solving all our problems, whatever, and of the here and now, and of the, what the future will bring, there is a group of us, of people who don't just see kind of the technology as solving all problems, but also it is the art side, it's the creative side, it's the left brain, right brain kind of thinking.
Yeah.
And partly it is also this attachment or this kind of, not attachment I should say, but this homage looking to history for lessons. Mm-hmm. And saying, okay, well, let's see if we can take the best from the past and the best for now to make our best future. It's kind of it's like the fusion of the past, present, and future coming together.
Okay.
And I think along with the technology focus and kind of the streamlining and the kind of the plainness of our technology, just having like our Apple phones with just basically a piece of glass.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the same kind of connections to beautiful design and object. I shouldn't say beautiful design because in its simplicity, its minimalism, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
But I think people are missing the beauty and charm of authentic materials and metals and brass and bronze and beautiful wood and having the artisans actually taking great pride in craftsmanship in what they made. It's kind of the makers, era, and the inventiveness, the creativity. And so kind of looking back at that and having a yearning for that and wanting to make that connection, I think that's why there's a lot of people interested in what steampunk is.
And were you always a maker before you got into steampunk? Because maker is kind of a super generic term, but it's kind of part of why we started this podcast. This podcast we started because we found all creative people are kind of cut from the same cloth. And I feel like makers, whether you crochet something or you're welding something, you kind of you're the same type of person, if that makes any sense.
Right. Should we say from the ADD or autism spectrum?
Oh, no. I mean, but no.
I think they've said that the great thinkers and inventors and creative problem solvers, have the touch of this because it's that obsessiveness, it's that kind of focus of being able to kind of, be able to do this type of work. But that's really not what, I think kind of connects us all. And the kind of in the maker world. Mm-hmm. I always considered myself to be someone who liked to tinker.
Yeah.
And I loved taking things apart. Wasn't so good about putting them back together.
Okay.
But I always was curious, and I early on, and my mother thought this was odd. I liked antiques. I liked older things.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I liked architecture and design. Salvage, so all that kind of was in my brain, and I think I didn't consider myself an artist or a maker, just kind of like who I was, And I do have an undergraduate business degree from UMass Amherst, business degree. And then I got my MBA from Duke. And so I was kind of focused on the business side, but always, incorporated creative problem solving and design in what I was doing. And then kind of when we bought our house in Sharon, Mass, this beautiful 1901 Victorian craftsman home, we said, wouldn't it be cool just to kind of bring in some antiques and objects that are the period of the house, but instead of having them kind of sit around like a museum, like you look at that object, oh, that did that, and it doesn't do that anymore because we don't need it to do that anymore. But maybe there's a way to bring these objects back to life, give them the new meaning, new relevance, and starting to say, okay, well, let me take this object, like this old cast iron, beautiful cooking stove, and turn it into a modern electric stove. So you're not feeding wood into it anymore. Right. But it's a modern stove, and it becomes a work of art. I mean, it's just the way that these things are made. And so that's what we did. I got this beautiful glass Mealy cooktop, kind of set it in, made new ovens and all that. And so that's kind of how things were born for me. Is that I didn't even know what steampunk was at the time. In fact, I had a lot of people come into the house, especially some younger friends, millennial friends. Yeah. They were coming in and saying, "Oh my God, you're steampunking." It's like, steam what? Yeah. What are you talking about? That sounds weird and wonderful. What is that? And then once I found out, I said, "Oh, this is like my life." Coming together. This was in my 40s. And I said, wow, this really, it had connections on many different levels. And it wasn't until later, because it was first a hobby, just kind of like doing my own thing, that it really became a business.
It's funny, as you're talking, I was kind of thinking about how, like, steampunk is one of those things that's so hard to define. And it's almost like if you had an area where people who time traveled all congregated, because there's no, like, if you're like, oh, I'm a Civil War reenactor, you're going to have those people being like, well, that's not a period accurate, pouch or, feather or whatever. And steampunks are like, cool. It doesn't matter. Does it look cool? Do you like it? Right. And it also seems to be very inclusive to people in general. Have you found that as your experience? That it's just
absolutely, yeah. So that's exactly it. As I said in the beginning too, it's not that it's more about kind of what you like things to be. It's a very positive kind of optimistic view. Yeah. And so I think. People are very tolerant and they really value, if you've taken the time, you've made something on your own and you've put in effort, that's really important. And again, that's kind of the maker sensibility, is that, you are, you're being creative, and it can be in any form, really. Yeah. But I think, again, there is a little bit of kind of battling between the reenactors and the steampunk folks, because that's exactly it. The reenactors want to basically reproduce, duplicate, preserve the history, and that's kind of their mission. Ours is, well, what was the best from the Civil War period? Kind of let's take that and then look at the history on how things have changed, and because it's all about adaptation, about evolving. That's the way that we survive and thrive, right? Yep. It's not staying the same. It's being able to adapt to your surroundings and adapt to the time. Steampunk is that. It's about adaptive reuse. And the amazing thing to me about this art form and about this genre, culture, whatever you want to call it, is that it teaches you, in a way, to be able to be more resilient, right? Because what it's doing is it's giving you this kind of unique perspective, looking at something, looking at an object, whatever it is, and understanding its history and saying, okay, well, I understand what that object did. It had a purpose, it had meaning, but time has passed it by, right? So technology has passed it by. So it's kind of destined for history's, dustbin.
Yeah.
But actively thinking, well, I can take that object that is beautiful in its own form, no longer functional, but I'm going to figure out a way to give it new life, new function, new meaning, give it more relevance. With the act of doing that, by taking that object and giving it new life, that is an act of defiance. That is an act of resilience. Because you're basically saying, that doesn't have to be thrown away. That can be repurposed and reused and given new life. Well, isn't that the perfect metaphor for our own lives?
Yeah.
Not just these objects, is that we can do the same thing, especially during this time, this difficult time where, we're not happy with the relationship, we're not happy with a job, we're not happy with whatever. We can change, we can adapt, we can give ourselves new meaning and new purpose. So I love this art form because in its essence, it gives people the ability to think more creatively and to become more resilient.
So now as a maker, are you a kind of maker where you have one craft that you have really honed and mastered, or are you kind of more one of those jack of all trades where you're like, ooh, now I'm going to learn how to weld or I'm going to learn how to leather work and jump all over the place?
Well, I was just talking to my wife about the welding piece, but I'll come back to that in a second. So my background is in business and in marketing, and so the clients I have, the projects are very large. These big, signature, iconic kind of large sculptures, and I can't do this all myself. It's very complex because, it's welding, like you said, metalwork, it's woodwork, it's electronics, it's mechanical, it's motors, it's lighting, and I don't have all these skill sets. And so one of my kind of skill sets is to be able to bring together the teams of people to make it happen.
Sure, yeah, you're the guy.
Right.
You have a guy that does that.
Right, exactly.
You're the guy. Yeah.
I've got a lot of guys and gals.
And gals, yeah.
Yeah. But that's so. I see myself, so I kind of seek out the opportunities, to collaborate with my clients. I come up with the ideas, and a lot of that actually is based on the history of the project. Mm-hmm. So if it's an adaptive reuse project, like taking an old mill or factory and turning it into a boutique hotel, a restaurant, winery, I'll learn about the history of the location, and then I'll come up with ideas on being able to fuse the history, art, and technology. And once I have that, then my mission is to go find the objects for inspiration so I can incorporate them in the piece, and then put together the team that's going to be able to do it, and then kind of work through that. Now, if it's a smaller project, I can do myself, and I do a lot of those too. And I've done a lot of work in the church here, and I kind of stop at welding because for insurance purposes, I can't actually really weld in the church.
Right. Yeah.
For the danger of it, and I don't know. I've got so much on my plate. It's just like that's something that I haven't taken up. I love working with others too. So, that's part of what I do. And there's a local vocational school, the Pathfinder Vocational School, and they have really talented kids who are doing electronics, like really advanced stuff. And they're right down the street. So I've been bringing them here to kind of work on projects for me. I get a big benefit because, I get really great work out of them, and they, get learning experience, and so it's all really, kind of works together. So I kind of, I want to learn more, but I have to be reasonable with myself and thinking that I just can't do it all.
That's pretty cool. I feel like if I was a kid in a vocational school and my options were to go work and, to not, what's the word I'm looking for? Intern at like a factory or a steampunk place. I feel like the steampunk place would be a lot more interesting.
Right. Well, I think and that's part of the issues with a lot of vocational schools too, is that it's very standard curriculum. They're fixing a car, they're doing plumbing and whatever, and here we're incorporating art. And a lot of the kids, that's kind of where they're going anyways. I mean, they kind of like that more.
Yeah.
And now being exposed to it, it kind of opens them out and say, this is an option. Although it's not easy to do, but it's something that, they can explore.
What would you say is the biggest project that you've worked on so far?
Okay. So the biggest project was probably the most complicated, partly because it was a mobile steampunk installation. So
was it like a Burning Man thing?
It could have went to Burning Man, but it probably would have gotten ruined at Burning Man with all the sand. But it's called the Grand Garnisher, and we made it for Hendrick's Gin. Are you familiar with Hendrick's Gin, the brand?
I don't think so.
You're not a gin drinker. So
not a gin drinker. I'm more whiskey, definitely.
Okay,
yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So Hendrick's Gin is a top shelf gin, and made in Scotland. And if you go on their website, it's really cool. Their marketing is kind of like Terry Gilliam's Monty Python kind of animation.
Okay, I'm gonna have to check. I love Terry Gilliam.
Yeah, so you would love the way that they kind of do their thing. So they came to me. This was a few years back, and they said, they're not steampunkers. They don't. They don't want to be kind of pigeonholed in that way in some ways, but they definitely have the aesthetic. So they came to me, and they said, Bruce, we got every year they do a big promotional push on like one kind of big thing that they make. One year it was a Hendrick's Gin blimp with a big kind of their eye on the side or whatever. So every year was something big. And so they came to me and they said, we think we got the right guy when they reached out, and they said, well, we want to do the largest and most complicated cucumber slicer in the world.
Okay.
And cucumbers, because Hendrick's Gin, their kind of famous mix is the infusion of cucumbers. So, and plus a lot of their concoctions, you slice cucumbers and you put them in the drain. So here they wanted something that's going to travel the United States from Boston, New York to the West Coast, and then come back again. 1 year. It was just going to be like a one-shot deal.
Yeah.
So they initially wanted me to use a double-decker bus in England.
Okay.
That's just to kind of have to be the cucumber slices. But you can also, I can talk until I'm blue in the face. To really see it, visualize it, you can go to my website, modvic.com, modvic.com. Go to my portfolio, and you'll see it there, Hendrick's Gin Grand Garnisher. But we found out that the double-decker bus was going to be way too expensive to buy, and then we were going to gut it, because we had a lot of stuff, and then and then have it shipped here, which is going to be too much. So we ended up putting this on the bed of a Freightliner truck, a 26-foot truck, and created like the whole sculpture on top of the bed. And basically what it was is we came up with this idea of the total story of the birth and the death of a cucumber.
Okay.
So in a steampunk kind of Rube Goldberg kind of type of thing. Yeah. So it first started out kind of in these copper kettles that we were kind of growing. They were, it was mechanical cucumbers, they were kind of, and then on the cabin, where people would be driving, on the roof of the cabin was a big wheel bicycle, single wheel bicycle with an actor, performer, who would take a fake cucumber. We couldn't really use real cucumbers in the whole kind of contraption because it wouldn't be hygienic. Right. The idea was that this cucumber was going to be cut, and you were going to be able to put your martini glass right underneath and deliver it, and that you're going to be able to drink from it. So we kind of, and I'll tell you a little bit about the magic in a bit, but the performer would take a cucumber, put it in like a tuba horn, and then it would start the process. So you would kind of see it go up and down these pulleys and these kind of conveyor belts. And, we had authentic objects like an 1880s steam engine that wasn't, pumping steam. It was electric powered.
Yeah.
We had to be careful. Here you've got a moving vehicle, that's traveling at highway speeds.
Right. So you can't have something very loosely attached. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Everything was triple, kind of fastened. So, but in any case, so it does all these things. It goes through the contraption, and it's all open, so you can kind of see from both sides. What this is. It's all well lit. It's kind of, it's a show basically.
Yeah.
And at the end, as it's going through its final stage, the fake cucumber goes kind of behind a little bit of a curtain, and then comes out to where you see it being deposited into a slicer. And we actually converted a deli slicer, like a,
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we had the tube come down, and then it was just slicing. Now, that's where we, traded in the real cucumber.
Yeah.
And then it came off another kind of food-safe conveyor belt, and then you put your glass down there, and the cucumbers would get into glass. So, I mean, this thing just kind of took off. They went through 40 cities, I think, 20 to the West Coast, 20 back, and it just drew a crowd wherever it went. In fact, in the first couple of weeks, it got into a couple of accidents. Not because the driver was getting a little used to driving a big truck, but people were not looking where they were going.
Oh, sure. I can't imagine, you're just tootling down the highway and you're like, what on earth is that thing?
Yeah. So no one was hurt though, but the magical thing was, at every stop it got great promotional activity. The local news was all over it, and it just. That artwork, had what I call an RON. Instead of return on investment, it had a return on novelty.
Yeah.
Which is very important as kind of a promotional vehicle. And it wasn't the Oscar Wienermobile. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. This was not a prop. This was like real. This was functional. I mean, we used authentic objects, and it was very mechanical. It was just, something to see. So it went to West Coast and came back, and I thought that was going to be the end of it because they said, one promotion a year. Then comes, and it was actually launched on Cucumber Day, which was June 14th.
Okay.
And that's for real. Check it out. June 14th.
Oh, I'm sure. There's a day for everything. Yep.
There's a day for every vegetable, I think.
Yeah.
So what did they do the following year? Same thing. I think on June 14th, they went and went, it might not have been all the same cities, but they went to the West Coast and came back. Again, tremendous, promotion for there. And then at that, I was going, well, what are they going to do with it now? And then, so they decided that they were going to ship it overseas to Amsterdam. And so it's traveling to the Netherlands. So it gives me great joy when something like that you're involved in making, has a new life. And I'm hoping if it's going to retire, we retire in the Smithsonian Museum. We'll see.
That'd be cool. Or at least the company facility. I feel like
I hope they do something with it. Yeah,
it's just I would love to see the accident report of someone that had a fender bender with it, being like, "What did you hit? A cucumber slicer?"
Lucky they didn't get sliced, right?
Yeah. So kind of conversely, what is the smallest project that you've ever worked on?
So that's a good question. I've actually been doing quite a few projects, for myself here, some smaller projects, and one of the things that I'm kind of into is these little kind of mechanical dioramas set in these kind of interesting steampunk, almost like lab glass.
Yeah.
So I have this beautiful sculpture that I did, and I did this during COVID. So it's kind of like it has some meaning there. I call it Nemo's Isolation. So I'm a big Jules Verne fan. I don't know if you are. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Oh yeah, I grew that Disney movie.
Yes,
I watched so many times as a kid.
Yeah, I'm still watching it.
Yeah.
So anyways, I've got this I had this idea that Nemo, he in his kind of research or his way to kind of find out what's happening, under the sea, is that he builds a diving bell. Are you familiar with old diving bell?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So basically, it was a dome shaped like a bell.
Is it the kind that had like a tube coming off the top that people would pump air into it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly it. So if a ship or something above would pump air into it. And so a lot of the early ones, they were kind of death traps because they didn't really understand, what they needed. But so I came up, I had this beautiful piece of lab glass, dome shaped, kind of tall. And it kind of, I've been using, do you know the artist mannequins, the articulating mannequins? Yep. So they have the small ones. So I kind of made a Nemo and created a little kind of viewing port or a cockpit for him using these small little objects for his, control mechanisms, steering mechanisms. I created a kind of a repurposed ship using the body is an old flying shuttle that came, that's from a textile loom.
Yeah.
The body, and it looks like it's pumping air into this diving bell, and it's got this big kind of cable eye, this cable that comes out with a big prosthetic eye, a real like prosthetic eye.
Yeah.
Kind of at the end, so you can kind of see around. So it's that type of stuff that I just really enjoy. And recently, I'm creating, and I don't know if you can see it in the room right now, is a steampunk aquarium.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the idea is again a Nemo-based alternative history story, where Nemo actually he's got that he fights the Kraken, the large octopus. Well, my idea is that after he fights the octopus, he loses an arm. And he becomes almost like Ahab,
Okay.
And they kind of, he's kind of an Ahab character.
Yeah.
So, but he wants to, get his revenge against the Kraken, and so he builds a mechanical Kraken to fight the Kraken at its own game.
Yeah. And
so the head of the Kraken, the octopus, is his viewing port. It's basically similar to what I was just talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of that's sticking out of the aquarium tank, and then the legs that look like mechanical trusses, almost like I don't know if you remember the movie Wild Wild West with Will Smith.
Never actually saw it. Are you talking about the giant spider, like the legs?
Spider. So legs, whatever. So the legs kind of come out of the tank and act as the frame of the aquarium too. So it's really going to be a cool structure. It's kind of small, it's not. It's not that big.
So do you always try to work some sort of story into your pieces like that?
Yeah. Well, the whole idea behind what I do and what I'm inspired by is history.
Yeah.
And I have my favorite authors, and I'm just a nut for the industrial period, the Victorian period, and just because a lot of that stuff is still around, partly because it was so well built, it was overbuilt.
Yeah.
They thought, they didn't know about planned obsolescence.
Right.
Fail.
They would think they would think planned obsolescence is a bad thing.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So so I think this is kind of my whole world now, is being able to kind of be inspired by history, and then but not like a reenactment or preservation. It's taking the best, the idea, and then bringing it forward, and that's kind of a way, because it's not just, I'm not building an antique aquarium, right?
Right.
I'm building a modern aquarium that has all of the incredible new modern technologies, and then kind of skinning it in this with the old, kind of that story. And it's always, technology is great in a lot of ways, because antique aquariums didn't have modern filters, pumps, and all that. Fish died.
Sure. Yeah.
Pretty quickly, and with everything, with all the technology of the new aquarium tanks, that makes them much more humane environment for the fish, a much better hobby, less maintenance. All that is good, but you just don't want it to be sterile. You want it to kind of have an aesthetic,
Right.
some design that's important. So that's kind of what I'm trying to achieve.
So you're talking about all these cool pieces that you add to your work, be the prosthetic eye and different types of glass jars and whatnot. I'm gonna try not to use the term hoarder, but Bruce, are you a hoarder?
Some people might say that, but a hoarder collects things.
I was being
Yeah.
facetious, but because being an artist, I'm kind of the same way. Like I had an idea for a project to use computer keys off a computer keyboard, so I have like a stack of computer keyboards, and every artist I know has a bag of bottle caps. It's like that kind of thing.
So I've learned over the years the things that I kind of value, partly because I think I can repurpose it or reuse it at some point.
Yeah.
And other things I'm just never going to get to. So I've over the years, I've tried to limit myself to only buy things that I'm going to be able to use at some point. And if you came out to visit here, which you are welcome to, at whatever, some point, you'll see a lot of really cool objects. And that's kind of my inventory for inspiration.
Yeah.
So I kind of look around. And other things, like when I go, do you know Brimfield, Mass?
Sure, the Brimfield. Yeah.
So that's like my second home. And I'm only one town away now, which is dangerous.
Yeah.
But 99% of what I see, it's like, oh, that's nice, but that's not steampunk. That's not kind of what I need. And I have gotten to a point where I've literally run out of room. So I've got to be careful. I can't just add stuff and not edit it or audit it.
Right.
I'll just run out of room. And I need room to display, because if things get buried, then out of sight, out of mind. It's like I forget that I even have it, and it's kind of a waste. So the beauty of being in a church and having this large area, I can display things now. So I'm literally walking around every day, and I know where everything is. I know I've got things set up with themes, and then it's like, boom. If I have an idea, I know where to go.
Yep.
So that's the case. And so when I go to Brimfield, it really has to tickle my fancy for me to kind of say, okay, I'm going to use it at some point. I don't know when, but more likely than not is that I have a client who wants to, is taking an old mill and making it into a winery. So I'm looking for a wine press, let's say.
Right.
Wine press. So that, I go out and find. And the amazing thing, Andy, is that you go on eBay or some of the, these buying and selling sites, and you put in, if you know the right search term, you'll see 10. And it's wow, I didn't even know this existed, or I'm buying stuff from all over the world. And at first I was like, do I really want to, buy something from Portugal or, whatever. But in terms of the cost of shipping, it is so amazingly low. Now, it might take a little bit more time, but not that much more time. Instead of 3 days, 5 days, it could take, 10 days, 2 weeks. And sometimes I'm not, it's not crucial that it has to, I have to get it right away. But eBay has been, I don't know what I would do without eBay. I mean, I just have to be honest with you, because for what I'm doing, for me to find something at that micro level, it might take me, weeks or months.
Yeah.
And now, it's one touch. There it is. I'm going to buy it. I think 2 clicks later, it's mine. Yeah. And then, I get it in 2 or 3 days. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So if they were younger, I suppose it doesn't have to be a younger person, but if someone wanted to get into steampunk and specifically, kind of the art and maker side of it, like, do you have a recommendation of like, oh, this would be a good project or a good material to start with?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's an interesting question. I a lot of what I do has all these elements to it, right? So, metalworking, woodworking, electronics, mechanical engineering, lighting, electrical. So, but it's very, when you're starting out, it's hard, it's hard for me, just to kind of bring all that together. So starting out simple is good.
Yeah.
And so two simple things that someone can get started with that, and I don't, everyone is kind of at their own, pace, skill level and all that. And I don't denigrate anyone's work. As I was saying before, it's all about creativity and, the passion and the making. But I think two kind of objects that would work well in a simplified way is either a steampunk clock or a steampunk lamp.
Okay.
Now, steampunk clock is good because there is all these tropes of time travel, right?
Yep.
And time is a really big part of steampunk. So a clock makes sense thematic-wise. And it's easy to buy the clock kits. So, like the little quartz mechanism with the hands and all that. You can get that at a local hobby, shop for $5.
Oh, so it's pretty inexpensive start.
Yeah, very expensive. Yeah. And then, but the idea is to be creative on the found objects. Again, steampunk is about history. It's not all about going to Home Depot and getting some plumbing parts.
Right.
Some gears, because that really doesn't kind of speak to the nature of of this definition idea, history plus art plus technology.
So like a reclaimed part is far better than just going to Home Depot and getting electrical conduit.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I'm at Home Depot once a day or every couple of days, but I'm buying connectors, fasteners, to kind of take the original parts and bring them together, because it really makes things much easier to use those type of physical connections. So, but the objects that are the kind of the inspirational, it's the wow part of it.
Yeah.
Those should be found objects. Again, try to do something that you're connected to, that you are, your family are. So, if there's something in your house that is, I'm not saying repurpose an heirloom, if you want to preserve that, or whatever, but if there's something there that reminds you of a family member, someone who's passed away, or your grandparents or whatever, and you really want to kind of, add your own mark to it, use that as a way to be able to kind of be the base, because that's what I do. So if I'm using something like I did a large steampunk wall clock, and I found this foundry mold. Are you familiar with foundry molds or foundry patterns?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. So patterns. I mean, they're still doing pattern making this way, where usually a carpenter or a wood craftsman would make a piece that you're going to want to make out of metal.
Yep.
Out of wood, and that would be the form, the pattern, and then it would be kind of impressed into hardened sand. And then pulled out, and that negative impression would be filled with, molten metal to form the metal piece, whatever you
right.
Make. So these patterns, there's 3D scanning, printing, and all that. So a lot of them, they're not using, wood patterns anymore. So they're available. So I found this wood pattern for a subway hatch.
Oh, cool. Door. Yeah.
So that became my clock, my round clock. And I love the idea of using a hatch for a clock, because a lot of times time travel, and it's kind of going through these portals, hatch.
Right, yeah.
Doors, right?
Oh, yeah, I get it. That's awesome. Yeah.
So, and you don't have to, this is a large, piece, but you can get kind of smaller, pieces. So something, and I would just kind of, a lot of times it's just simple tools. So a simple power drill, a pair of pliers, a screwdriver, some fasteners, and you're good to go. I would not, if you're starting out, I wouldn't get into any of the major kind of power tools or welding. If you're like soldering, you can solder. But my whole approach too is I stay away from hot glue or a lot of glues, because it's temporary, right?
Yeah.
And with temperature and climate and humidity, most of those glues will fail over time, which is kind of a bummer. So I kind of stay away from that. There is one product that I use that is incredible. It's called JB Weld.
Oh yeah, I know JB Weld. Yeah.
Yeah, JB Weld.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an epoxy that you mix. I cannot believe how strong that is after it totally cures. It's really, and that has become, instead of welding, I don't do it for big pieces, it doesn't
right.
weight, but, for smaller projects, I can do that. So you got the clock, and then if you want to be a little bit more ambitious, a lamp. Now, you can go to Home Depot or Ace or your local hardware store. They have a whole selection of lamp parts.
Oh, yeah. In the electrical section, you have pretty much everything you need to make a lamp. Because a lamp...
So you've got the tubes, you've got the connectors, you've got the sockets, which is great because all that is set up and ready to go. And you just basically have to feed the wire through whatever piece you're working on and then connect the socket part to the piece.
Right.
And boom, you got a steampunk lamp. And you see a lot of steampunk lamps. Like when you go to Winfield, because they're relatively easy to make. They're not that pricey, in terms of the materials. So I think those two projects would be a good start.
Nice. I feel like you're the steampunk version of Adam Savage. Do you find inspiration from other makers like him?
I love the show Mythbusters.
Yeah.
I didn't get to see as many episodes, and I know they've had tragedies. People have, I think 2 people have died.
Yeah, one of the people who were on but not very much died in a car accident, and recently Grant Imahara passed away.
Yes,
yeah.
So I am inspired. Actually, Adam did a recent thing that I thought was really interesting. He used a robot. Is it the General? I forget the name of the company that made these kind of walking robots like an animal.
Mm-hmm. Boston
Dynamic, or
yes, Boston Dynamics. Yeah.
So,
he made the rickshaw.
Yeah, the rickshaw. Isn't
that cool?
Yeah.
Oh,
like a
so cool.
Rickshaw.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. So I could definitely tell he's into it. In fact, I tried to reach out to Adam at some point to see if there's a way to collaborate. I never heard back. I don't know if I had the right email or whatever, but I tried to connect with him.
He actually has a YouTube channel now called Tested, and I watch it pretty much all the time. And since COVID's hit, he does one-day builds and show and tells and tool tips, and he's just one of those people that, like yourself, it's not just about what you're doing. You spread the knowledge to other people, where you bring the kids in and have them help out. I am definitely going to take you up on the offer to come check out that place, because even just from the shot here, it looks pretty interesting. Doesn't quite do it justice.
Right.
So I just want to say thanks for joining us on the show, and hopefully next year we'll be back at, in person at the Steampunk Festival, the Jewelry City Steampunk Festival. That'd be a lot of fun. But where can people go online to check out your work or contact you or anything like that?
So the best place to go really is my website, modvic.com. So Modvic is modern Victorian.
Okay.
It's M as in Mary, O, D as in David, V as in Victor, IC.com. They can also, I have an Instagram page if they want to go search for that. It's Rosenbaum, my last name, ROSENBAUM.Bruce. And it's I'm all over the place if you just Google me. So you just Google my name, Bruce Rosenbaum, and you'll be able to find stuff.
They don't have to put Steampunk Rabbi in? Or?
No, I don't think they have to put in Steampunk. I'm the only kind of Bruce Rosenbaum out there. But and also, I am giving tours.
Oh.
So people can go through Groupon.
Yeah.
So you get a free tour, so you don't have to.
Oh, sweet.
But people can go to my website. At the bottom, there's a link to Groupon, and they can sign up for a tour. It's about a 2-hour, 2-hour tour. I give them a little presentation, and then I show them what's here. I'm also, and the next one, I don't have on one schedule right now, but probably in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working with Atlas Obscura. Do you know them? The website?
Yes, I do. Why do I know? I know the name. I'm trying to think of who they are.
Okay. So
Is that the shop in New York?
no,
Oh, okay.
that I know that was Oddities. So and I was
Yeah.
actually on
Mm-hmm.
I was actually on the show Oddities a couple of times too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but no. Atlas Obscura it's a website. Basically, it's like a really cool travel website where they have all these really interesting, kind of bizarre, out of the way kind of spots all over the world that are off the main beaten path.
Mm-hmm.
And like, wow, that's really crazy. I got to go see that,
Yeah.
type of thing. So I mean, they've been impacted by COVID too, because people aren't traveling as much. So what they did is they started to kind of put together these virtual experiences, going, talking with people and visiting, touring, locations virtually through Zoom. So I've done 2 of these where people like this, but we go around and you can kind of see. So they've been very successful, and they want to do more. But at this point, they're just trying to figure out their new business model because it's just been difficult. Yeah,
I feel like kind of everyone's doing that. I know Inebri-art's been. We work mostly with breweries and distilleries and things like that. And
what?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So we got to connect.
Well, breweries are down there. Yeah, we one of our biggest running events. We do like beer mug paintings at distilleries. So we bring in all the supplies, and you go home with a custom mug. But right now, there's nothing going on, yeah. So it's trying to figure out I hate the term, but what the new normal is.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to take a little bit of time to get there, but my approach really has, again, it's about resilience,
mm-hmm.
being able to pivot and to kind of not be afraid of change. And, my basis kind of, if I'm healthy and my family's healthy, then, we can figure it out.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why it's so important for people to stay healthy and safe, because if you're not, then that changes the whole equation in terms of what you can do. So,
absolutely. I mean, if you're healthy and safe, then you're just dealing with the kind of boredom and monotony and financial repercussions. If you're unhealthy, you're dealing with all that and not being healthy.
It really complicates things. And to tell you the truth, and I don't wish this on anyone, but for me, it's kind of released my creative juices being, in this 9,000 square foot church with all of my incredible objects that I have time to now kind of think and work and work on my projects. It's really been, I've blossomed in some ways in terms of being, having this time now. And I think other people should think the same way.
It's really funny. Like I've talked to a lot of people because the one thing I've been doing, I'm sitting around a lot, so I've been recording a lot of podcasts.
Yeah.
And it's really like kind of 50-50 split. Some people are like, this is great. I have a ton of time and I get a lot of stuff done. And other people are like, I just don't have the motivation, and which I was suffering through up until I'd say like the last month or so.
Yeah.
And then I started a long overdue art project and I brought my daughter into it. She's 16 and she's in a vocational school in their visual arts program.
Oh, great.
And I was like, hey, do you want to work on this?
Sorry.
No worries. I'm like, hey, do you want to work on this project? Friends of mine bought a house, and apparently in Massachusetts it's illegal to sell a house if you have a pool with a diving board. So the owners had taken the diving board off and just tucked it behind the pool house, so it's like it doesn't have a diving board.
Right, sure.
And they didn't want the diving board, so they're like, can you paint it so it becomes an art piece that we can hang out by the pool?
Oh, wow.
So I brought her in on it and got involved, and just from, it's not even done yet, but just even from that little project, I already have 3 other projects lined up with her for different businesses and stuff. So that has kind of reinvigorated me. So like she's kind of got me back into making artwork. So
that's wonderful. So and I love the idea that you're doing this with your daughter. I find in steampunk art, when I'm doing these workshops too, it goes all across generations. So I've got preteens, I've got the parent, I've got the grandparent. They're all working on it together because there's something for everyone, right?
Oh, yeah. And my daughter's definitely steampunk. I think last Halloween she dressed as like a steampunky plague doctor kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay, so she's all set for this year, right?
Oh, yeah. So, that's the funny thing about steampunkers. It's like, the governor's like, everyone has to wear a mask, and steampunkers are like, yes!
Yeah.
But again, I want to say thank you for taking the time to talk to us, and it's been a lot of fun. Yes. And I'll get out there as soon as I can, and we'll talk steampunk.
Just give me a holler. We'll set it up.
Yeah, and beer, steampunk and beer.
Okay. Yeah. You bring the beer, I'll bring the steampunk.
Sounds perfect.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Andy. Take care.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to today's podcast. You can find us on all social medias at Inebri-art or on Instagram at Inebri-art6. You can email us at Inebri-art@yahoo.com. And make sure you listen to the other podcasts on the Inebri-art Podcast Network, including Bar Talk, Old Colony Cast, Retro Redoctopus, America's Hometown Horror Podcast, and our newest one, Theme Park Legends, a podcast about working at theme parks. What else? And we'll catch you again next time.